The scream ends, but it never truly stops. It echoes in frequencies that have no name, rippling through dimensions where sound becomes color, becomes pain, becomes something worse than either. The greater demon of Slaanesh is gone, banished back into the warp with a true name spoken so perfectly that reality itself shuddered in recognition. But its final cry lingers in the spaces between atoms, in the gaps where thought meets madness, and I can still taste it on my tongue like copper and roses and ash. I stand alone in what was once a cathedral. The walls are melting, not collapsing, melting, flowing upward in defiance of gravity and sense. Stone becoming liquid, becoming light, becoming nothing at all. This place exists only because I believe it does, because my faith anchors it to real space long enough for the warp taint to bleed away into the immaterium. In another moment, perhaps two, it will finish its dissolution and return to being what it always was. A wound in the skin of the universe, now cauterized, soon to scar. My brothers lie around me. 7 of them. No, 6. I cannot see Brother Castor, which means his body was consumed entirely when he intercepted the demon's final lash of excess. His armor remains, split open like a seed pod, empty inside except for the fading glow of his psychic hood. The others are more intact. Brother Severin's faceplate is cracked, revealing one grey eye still open, still staring at something I hope he could not actually see. Justicar Thane kneels as if in prayer, frozen in the moment of death, his force halberd still thrust forward into space where the daemon's heart would have been if demons had hearts. I will never speak their names again. This is the law. This is the mercy. Once a grey knight falls in battle against the Neverborn, his name is sealed, his deeds unrecorded except in the silent archives beneath Titan, where only the dead keep records. To speak their names would be to remember them. To remember them would be to grieve. To grieve would be to open a crack in the soul where corruption might enter, and we cannot afford cracks. So I will forget them. Not now. Not in this moment where their bodies still hold warmth. But eventually, the psycho-conditioning will see to it. The rituals of sanctification will scrub the attachments clean. In a year, perhaps less, I will remember that 7 brothers entered this cathedral with me, but I will not remember their faces. In 10 years, I will remember only that there was a battle here. In a century, even that will fade to numbers in a report that no one outside my chapter will ever read. This is what we are. The air tastes wrong. It should taste of incense and purity, of the sacred oils we anoint our armor with before battle. Instead, it tastes of ash, yes, but also something sweeter, burnt sugar and decayed flowers, and the ghost of pleasures that have no place in a mind like mine. The demon tried to touch me. In those final seconds before, banishment, when its form was breaking apart into geometric impossibilities and its voice was fragmenting into 1,000 screaming whispers, it reached for me, specifically. Not with claws, with words. It spoke my name. Not the name I carry now. The designation given to me when I became a Grey Knight. The syllables in a language older than mankind that mark me as a weapon of the Imperium, sharp and sanctified. No, it spoke the other name, the one I do not remember, the one that was cut out of my mind with psychic surgery and ritual and prayers that tasted like blood and lightning, the name my mother gave me. I do not know how the demon knew it. Perhaps it plucked the memory from the warp itself, from the moment that name was taken from me and cast into the immaterium like refuse. Perhaps all discarded things end up in the warp eventually, even the names of children who were unmade to become angels. Perhaps the demon lied, and the name it spoke was false, a guess, a temptation wrapped in phonemes designed to make me hesitate. It does not matter. What matters is that for the space of a single heartbeat, I wanted to remember. I wanted to know if that name was real. If somewhere in the galaxy, there had been a woman who held a child and whispered that name with love before the black ships came and took him away to be forged into something that could stand in a melting cathedral and feel nothing while his brothers lay dead around him. I look down at my hands. They are gauntleted in silver ceramite inscribed with words so powerful that to look upon them too long is to invite headaches and nosebleeds in unaugmented humans. Hexagrammatic symbols flow across the knuckles in scripts that predate the age of strife. The names of 93 lesser demons I have personally banished are etched in microscopic text along the fingers, each letter a prayer, each word a binding. My hands are shaking. I cannot remember the last time my hands shook. I am a grey knight. I am gene-forged from the Emperor's own genetic template, psycho-conditioned beyond human limits, trained in arts of war that would break lesser minds to even witness. I have walked through the Garden of Nurgle and felt no despair. I have faced the bloodthirsters of Khorne and known no fear. I have stared into the labyrinth of Tzeentch and emerged with my sanity intact, my purpose unshaken. But I cannot remember my mother's face. I try. Standing here in this dying place, surrounded by the corpses of brothers whose names I am already beginning to forget, I try to remember her. Was she tall? Short? Did she have kind eyes? Did she sing? Did she smell of flour or machine oil or incense or something else entirely? Did she weep when they took me? Did she fight? Did she beg them to leave her child, please? Just leave her child. Nothing. There is only silver where that memory should be. Silver like my armor, like my blood when I am wounded, like the psychic fire that burns in my soul when I speak the words of banishment. Silver and cold and pure and empty. The cathedral finishes melting. The walls collapse into light, and I am standing on bare earth beneath a sky the color of old bruises. In the distance, I can hear the sounds of the Imperium reasserting itself. Drop pods screaming down through the atmosphere, Valkyries roaring overhead, the mechanized prayer chants of the Astra Militarum as they advance to secure the area. They will find nothing. The Inquisition will see to that. Memory wipes for anyone who saw too much. Orbital bombardment for any structures too tainted to purify. Official reports that mention chemical weapons or Xenos raids or administratum errors. Anything but the truth. Anything but demons. Because humanity cannot know. Because if they knew, truly knew, what crawls at the edges of their reality, they would break. And we are what stands between them and that breaking. I am what stands between them and that breaking. A weapon that bleeds silver, purpose forged and name forgotten, standing alone on scorched earth beneath a wounded sky. This is what I am. This is all I am allowed to be. The wound closes behind me as the Thunderhawk breaks atmosphere, and I am left with the question I should not be asking. When did I stop being human? I know the answer. Every Grey Knight knows the answer. We simply do not speak it aloud, because to speak it would be to acknowledge that something was lost, and acknowledgement is the first step toward grief, and grief is a luxury we cannot afford. It begins on Titan, Saturn's moon, hidden moon, the moon that exists and does not exist, wrapped in psychic shielding so absolute that it occupies a state of semi-reality, phased slightly out of sync with the material universe. Navigators cannot find it unless they know exactly where to look, and even then, they must possess clearance so rare that fewer than 100 souls in the Imperium are permitted to know its true location. It is a secret wrapped in lies, wrapped in myth, and at its heart sits the fortress monastery of the Grey Knights, a place that should not be, housing warriors who must not be known. I remember Titan. Or rather, I remember being on Titan, which is not the same thing. The memories begin abruptly, without context or childhood or any sense of before. One moment there is nothing. The next, I am standing in a chamber of black stone, naked, shivering, surrounded by others like me. Boys, all of us, though none of us remember being children. We range in age from perhaps 8 to 14 Terran Standard years, though our bodies will soon be irrelevant, rebuilt by gene seed and augmentation into something beyond such simple measurements. None of us remember our names. This is intentional. This is mercy, they tell us later, once we have learned enough of the Gothic tongue to understand the concept. The psychosurgery that brought us here, that scoured our minds clean of home and family, and every soft thing that might become a weakness, was not cruelty. It was necessity. Because what we will face cannot be faced by anyone who still clings to the person they used to be. Demons do not attack the body first. They attack memory, identity, the sense of self that says, I am this and not that. I am loved and therefore real. I remember warmth and therefore warmth exists. Strip that away, and what remains? A weapon, a will, a soul so fortified by absence that there is nothing for corruption to grip. So they make us forget. Not gradually, not gently. The black ships bring us to Titan, and within hours of arrival we are taken to the chambers of purgation, where librarians and tech priests work in concert to unweave the threads of who we were. Psychic surgery cuts away the neural pathways of attachment. Ritual chanting drowns out the ghost echoes of voices we will never hear again. Chemical treatments suppress the limbic responses that might trigger spontaneous memory recovery. They burn out our childhoods like cauterizing wounds, and when it is done, we are given new names, not names in Gothic or any human language, names in a tongue that predates humanity's exodus from terror, a language of pure meaning and mathematical certainty. My name, the one I carry now, translates roughly to "he who stands against the geometries of madness." But that translation is inadequate, flattened by the limitations of human speech. In its true form, my name is a formula, a declaration, a statement of purpose that exists independent of the flesh that carries it. We learn this language before we learn anything else. Our first words are not mother, or father, or hungry, or afraid. Our first words are banishments, phrases of abjuration and denial that, when spoken correctly, cause reality to assert itself over unreality. We chant them in unison in halls that echo with meanings beyond sound, and sometimes boys collapse bleeding from the eyes because their minds are not yet strong enough to hold the concepts we are forcing into them. Those who collapse do not rise again. The training is not measured in years. It is measured in transformations. First, the psychic awakening. We are all psychers. Every Grey Knight must be, because faith alone is not enough to stand against the Neverborn. We must have the power to enforce our will upon the warp itself. They test us in chambers where the barriers between reality and madness are deliberately thin, and we learn to shape the immaterium with thought and prayer combined. Some boys scream as their gifts manifest. Some burn with psychic fire from the inside out. Some simply vanish, pulled into the warp by hungers we will spend our lives fighting. The rest of us continue. Second, the gene seed. The sacred genetic legacy of the Emperor himself, filtered through processes the Mechanicus fears to examine too closely. It is implanted in stages, progenoid glands and os modula, and the dozen other organs that will remake us into something beyond human. But ours is different from the gene seed of other space marines. Purer, more dangerous, carrying within it a fragment of the master of mankind's own psychic potential. When it takes root, we feel it like lightning in our marrow, like prayers written in our bones. Some boys reject the gene seed. Their bodies consume themselves from within, trying to purge the foreign greatness that their flesh cannot contain. They are given the Emperor's peace, and their gene seed is recovered for the next generation. Third, the martial training. We learn to kill before we learn to read. We learn the 17 principal forms of demon manifestation before we learn the names of the stars. Our instructors are Grey Knights who have served for centuries, warriors so ancient and so scarred by psychic combat that they barely qualify as human anymore. They teach us without kindness, because kindness is a weakness we cannot afford, but also without cruelty, because cruelty is an indulgence that might corrupt. They teach us that we are already dead, that the moment we were chosen for this chapter, our lives ended and our duties began, that everything we do from this point forward is borrowed time, grace extended by the Emperor's will, and we must spend it in service, or be unworthy of the sacrifice that created us. We learn the names of demons, not the false names they wear like masks in real space, but the true names, the words that define their existence in the warp, the syllables that bind them to specific configurations of thought and hunger. These names are dangerous to know. Simply holding one in your mind creates a connection, a thin thread between your soul and the daemon's essence. But we must know them, must memorize thousands upon thousands of them, must be able to recall the exact phonetic sequence even while being torn apart by warp-spawned claws, because a true name, spoken perfectly, is a weapon more powerful than any blade. Fourth, and finally, the armoring. When our bodies have been transformed, when our minds have been fortified, when our souls have been tested in the fire of faith and found strong enough to bear the weight of our purpose, only then are we permitted to don the sacred battle plate of the Grey Knights. It is not simply armor, it is a relic, every piece inscribed with hexagrammatic wards and prayers of abjuration. The ceramite is alloyed with blessed silver. The psychic hood amplifies our powers while shielding our minds from the predations of the warp. To wear it is to become a living prayer, a walking banishment, a creature of such focused purpose that demons recoil from our mere presence. I remember the day I first sealed myself into my armor. I remember the weight of it, the way it felt like being buried and reborn simultaneously. I remember looking at my reflection in the polished surface of a brother's pauldron and seeing not a boy, not a man, but an angel of silver and purpose. I remember thinking, this is what I was always meant to be. And I remember not remembering what I had been before. That is when I stopped being human. That is when we all stopped. But stopping is not the same as being stopped. The difference reveals itself in the Chamber of Trials, 7 months after my final augmentation, when I am deemed ready to face my first demon alone. The chamber is circular, carved from Titan's bedrock and inscribed with geometries that hurt to perceive directly. Mirrors line the walls, not glass, but polished obsidian that reflects things that are not there, or perhaps reflects things that are more there than the physical forms we mistake for reality. At the center, drawn in salt blessed by the blood of saints whose names were struck from all records the moment they died, is a binding circle. Hexagrammatic, perfect, a mathematical absolute made manifest in white crystals that glow faintly with psychic resonance. Inside the circle waits a lesser demon of Tzinch. It does not look like a demon, not at first. It appears as a bird, something like a raven, something like a peacock, something that shifts between forms too quickly for the eye to track. Its feathers are the colors of oil on water, of bruises, of nebulae collapsing into themselves. It watches me with eyes that are sometimes 3, sometimes 9, sometimes a number that makes my head ache when I try to count them. My instructors stand at the chamber's edge, silent and observing. This is my trial, my test. I must face the daemon alone, bind it with words of power, and banish it back into the warp from which it was summoned. If I succeed, I will be one step closer to becoming a full battle brother of the Grey Knights. If I fail, the demon will be destroyed by my instructors, and I will be deemed unworthy. A fate I do not care to contemplate. I step forward. My armor feels heavier than usual, or perhaps I am simply aware of its weight in a way I have not been before. The psychic hood hums against my skull, its neural interfaces feeding me data, stabilizing my thoughts, keeping my mind fortified against the predations I am about to face. The demon watches me approach. It tilts its head, or heads, as the number seems to fluctuate, and makes a sound that might be laughter, or might be the screaming of stars dying in distant galaxies. "Little weapon," it says, and its voice is crystalline, beautiful, wrong. "Little prayer made flesh. Do you know what you are?" I do not respond. I have been taught not to engage in dialogue with demons. Words are their weapons. Concepts are their claws. Every syllable they speak is an attempt to worm into the listener's mind and find purchase in some unguarded corner of thought. Instead, I begin the ritual of banishment. I speak the first syllable of its true name, a sound that scrapes against my throat like broken glass, a phoneme that was never meant to be pronounced by human vocal cords. The air in the chamber thickens. The daemon flickers, its form destabilizing for a fraction of a second. "Stop," it says, and there is no command in its voice, only invitation. "Stop, and I will tell you something you want to know." I continue the ritual. The second syllable, the third. Each one is a prayer and a denial, a statement that this creature has no right to exist in the material universe, that its presence is an abomination, that reality itself rejects it. The demon does not attack me. This is what makes it dangerous. A demon of Khorne would have thrown itself against the binding circle, testing the wards with rage and violence. A demon of Nurgle would have whispered of entropy and despair, trying to erode my will through attrition. A demon of Slaanesh would have offered pleasures and sensations, attempting to bribe my senses into weakness. But this is a demon of Tzeentch, the changer of ways, the architect of fate. Its weapons are not violence or despair or pleasure. Its weapons are knowledge, questions, the terrible truths we hide from ourselves. "She wept for 7 days, the demon says. I falter. The fourth syllable dies in my throat, unspoken. "Your mother," it continues, and its voice is gentle now, almost tender. "When the black ships came and took you away, she wept for 7 days. On the 8th day, she stopped eating. On the 9th day, she walked to the highest point in her city and spoke your name to the sky. My hands are shaking. I can see them trembling inside my gauntlets, the silver ceramite vibrating with the instability of my will. This is a lie. It must be a lie. Demons lie. It is their nature. They cannot help but twist truth into falsehood because truth is anathema to them, a concept that burns them as surely as our blessed silver and sanctified prayers. But what if it is not lying? She spoke your name every night for 3 months, the demon says, and now its form has stopped shifting, has settled into something almost human, a woman's shape, hooded, weeping. Until the inquisitorial agents came and made her forget. They scrubbed her mind clean, little weapon. They took you from her twice, once in body, once in memory. She does not remember you now. She does not remember that she ever had a son. I should continue the banishment. I should speak the remaining syllables of its true name and cast it back into the warp where it belongs. My instructors are watching. This is my test, my trial. Everything I have trained for culminates in this moment. but I cannot speak. I can give it back, the demon whispers. Your name, the real one, the one she gave you when you were born, the one she spoke with love before they burned it out of your skull. I can give you that memory. Just one memory. Just the sound of her voice saying she loved you. That is all. No corruption. No bargain. Just the truth of what was stolen from you. My psychic hood crackles with power. Warning lights flash across my retinal display. My heartbeat, augmented, regulated, stabilized beyond human norms, is accelerating. The armor's medical systems are compensating, flooding my bloodstream with chemical stabilizers. But they cannot stabilize what is happening inside my mind. For 3 heartbeats, I am tempted. Not by corruption, not by the promise of power or pleasure or any of the 1,000 lures that demons traditionally employ. I am tempted by something far more dangerous. The desire to have been human once. The wish to know that before I was a weapon, I was a child. That before I was a prayer made flesh, I was a son. The demon waits, patient, knowing it has found the crack. Not in my faith, not in my training, not in the psycho-conditioning or the gene seed or the centuries of martial discipline that have shaped me into what I am. It has found the crack in my humanity, the hairline fracture where the boy I was meets the weapon I became, the place where memory was excised and the wound never quite healed over. I close my eyes. I think of my brothers lying dead in the melting cathedral. I think of the demon of Slanesh speaking a name I do not remember. I think of all the things I have sacrificed to become what I am. Not just memories, but the capacity for memories. The neurological structures that would allow me to feel nostalgia or longing, or the particular pain of missing someone I never knew. I open my eyes, and I speak the final syllables. The demon screams. Its form unravels, geometry collapsing into impossible angles. And then it is gone, banished back into the warp, the binding circle scorched black, where its essence touched reality. My instructors step forward. One of them places a hand on my shoulder pauldron. "Well done," he says. I do not feel victorious. I feel like I have lost something I will never be able to name. The loss follows me into my first true deployment, though I do not speak of it, and no one asks. 3 weeks after the Chamber of Trials, I am assigned to Strike Force Paladin under the command of Brother Captain Alaric, a warrior who has served the chapter for 217 years. We depart Titan aboard the strike cruiser Sword of Justice, bound for a world whose name has already been stricken from imperial records, a minor agri-world on the eastern fringe where a warp incursion has manifested in the lower hives. Minor, contained, requiring expertise but not full deployment. These are the words used in the briefing, and they are lies of a mission. There is no such thing as a minor warp incursion. There is only the difference between corruption discovered early and corruption discovered too late. We make planetfall in drop pods, 6 of us in total. Brother Captain Alaric, Justicar Thane and his 4-knight squad, of which I am now the newest member. The pods scream through atmosphere like falling stars, and I feel the familiar lurch in my stomach as gravity reasserts itself and the retro thrusters fire and the impact hammers through ceramite and augmented bone alike. The pod door blows outward in a shower of explosive bolts. I step onto a world that is dying. The air tastes of copper and ozone and something underneath. Something sweet and rotting that makes my psychic senses recoil. The sky is the wrong color, somewhere between purple and green, and the clouds move in patterns that suggest geometry rather than weather. In the distance, I can see the hive city, its spires twisted like the fingers of arthritic hands, reaching toward a sun that is too large and too red and too close. "Form up," Justicar Thane commands, and we obey without thought. muscle memory and training overriding the sensory assault. We move in perfect synchronization, a 5-pointed star with Thane at the apex, each of us positioned to cover overlapping fields of fire while maintaining optimal spacing for psychic resonance. The Astra Militarum has established a perimeter 2 kilometers from the hive entrance. We pass through their lines in silence. The guardsmen do not look at us directly. Some make the sign of the Aquila. Others simply turn away, as if our presence is too bright to witness. They know what we are, even if they do not know our chapter. They know that when warriors in silver armor arrive, the situation has moved beyond conventional warfare into realms where faith and firepower must become one. Brother Captain Alaric leads us into the hive. The corruption is immediately evident. The walls weep. Not metaphorically, they actually weep, producing a clear fluid that pools on the floor and evaporates into vapor that stings the eyes. Graffiti covers every surface, but it is not the work of human hands. The symbols shift and writhe when observed directly, forming patterns that suggest words in languages that predate language itself. We encounter the first demon 300 meters in. It is a thing of mouths and eyes, a horror spawn of chaos undivided, neither fully committed to any one of the ruinous powers, nor entirely free of their influence. It lunges at us with appendages that are sometimes claws, sometimes tentacles, sometimes simply holes in space where matter has forgotten how to exist. Brother Captain Alaric destroys it with a single gesture. He does not speak a word of power. He does not raise his force weapon. He simply extends his hand, and the demon ceases to be. I feel the psychic pressure of his will. Absolute, overwhelming, a statement of reality so forceful that unreality cannot withstand it. The demon does not scream. It does not dissolve. It simply stops existing, as if it had never been there at all. Move, Alaric commands, and we move. We fight our way deeper into the hive. More demons manifest, plaguelings of Nurgle dripping with diseases that have no names. Demonettes of Slanesh moving with grace that makes the eye betray the mind. Lesser entities of Khorne and Tzeentch, and stranger things that serve darker powers still. We kill them all, banish them, unmake them with prayer and silver and the terrible certainty of our purpose. I fight alongside warriors who have done this for centuries, and I am humbled by their perfection. Brother Captain Alaric moves through combat like a prayer made flesh. Every motion is economy itself. No wasted movement, no excess energy, nothing but absolute efficiency married to devastating power. His force sword leaves trails of silver fire in the air, and where it cuts, reality reasserts itself so forcefully that demons do not merely die, but are retroactively erased, their presence in the materium edited from history. Justicar Thane's weapon sings. Literally sings. His force halberd produces a tone when it tastes demonic essence, a note that resonates in dimensions beyond sound. I watch him cut through a pack of blood letters with movements that look almost like dance, each strike flowing into the next, the singing of his blade creating a melody that is also a banishment, music that unmakes the profane. The other brothers in the squad are equally formidable. Brother Cardius, whose Stormbolter never needs reloading because he times each magazine change with such precision that there is never a moment when he is not firing. Brother Severin, whose psychic lightning arcs from enemy to enemy, finding weaknesses in their immaterial forms with the accuracy of a surgeon's blade. And then there is me, new, untested, fighting with technique rather than instinct, reciting the litanies of banishment from memory rather than from the deep well of experience. But I do not fail. I do not falter. We reach the epicenter of the incursion 6 hours after planetfall. It is a chamber deep in the hive's underbelly where a cult has drawn symbols in blood and opened a wound in reality. The cultists are already dead, consumed by the very powers they sought to serve. The warp rift is small, barely a meter across, but it pulses with malevolent hunger. We seal it. 6 grey knights standing in perfect geometric formation, speaking words of closure in unison, our combined will forcing reality to remember its own laws and reject the intrusion of the warp. The rift screams as it collapses. For a moment I feel something on the other side pushing back. Vast, ancient, aware of us, and angry that we exist. Then it is done. The hive is purified. The incursion is contained. Victory is absolute. We return to the surface in silence. The Astra Militarum has prepared a transport for us. A Thunderhawk painted in their regimental colors. Too plain for our use, but sufficient for extraction. We board without ceremony. The pilot asks no questions. We sit in the troop bay, 6 warriors in silver armor, and we do not speak. This is when I see it. Brother Captain Alaric, who moved through combat with such perfect grace, now sits motionless, staring at nothing. His eyes are open, but they do not track movement. They do not focus on anything in the physical world. He is looking at something else. Something inside, perhaps, or something very far away. Justicar Thane removes his helmet. His face is scarred, crisscrossed with old burn marks from psychic feedback. He is younger than I expected, perhaps only 60 Terran standard years, but his eyes are ancient. He does not look at any of us. He simply stares at the deck plating between his feet. Brother Severin begins to speak. At first, I think he is praying, but no. He is reciting names, one after another, in a quiet monotone that never varies in pitch or pace. Lieutenant Marcus Vane, Sergeant Thomas Krell, Corporal Sandra Mize, Private First Class. He continues for 20 minutes, never pausing, never hesitating. 4,733 names, each one a soldier of the Astra Militarum who died holding the perimeter while we were inside the hive. Soldiers I never saw. Soldiers whose sacrifice allowed us to complete our mission. When he finishes, no one acknowledges what he has done. No one asks why. We simply sit in silence, ghosts in silver armor, returning to a ship that will take us to the next war. And I understand something I was not taught in the Chamber of Trials. We do not just fight demons. We carry the weight of every soul we cannot save. The weight becomes heavier with each mission, though it takes time to understand why. We are deployed 17 times in the span of 3 Terran standard years. 17 worlds touched by the warp. 17 incursions contained before they can metastasize into full demonic invasions. The efficiency is remarkable. The chapter's intelligence network, working in concert with the Inquisition, identifies corruption in its earliest stages, sometimes within days of the first manifestation, sometimes within hours. We arrive after the corruption has begun, but before it can spread. This timing is not accidental. It is the result of millennia of refinement, of pattern recognition and prophetic calculation and psychic divination. But it means we arrive at a specific moment in every catastrophe, the moment when humanity is at its most vulnerable. We see things no one should see. On a shrine world called Benediction, we find a monastery where 73 priests have been possessed by daemonettes of Slanesh. The possession happened gradually, over months, through dreams and whispered prayers and small corruptions of doctrine that seemed harmless at first. By the time we arrive, the priests have transformed the monastery into a temple of excess. We kill them all, everyone. They die wearing robes that were once blessed by saints, their mouths still forming prayers to the God Emperor, even as demons pilot their flesh like obscene puppets. On a feudal world called Greystone, We discover that an entire noble family has been corrupted by a changeling of Tzeentch. The daemon replaced the family's youngest child 3 years prior and has been slowly poisoning the bloodline with its presence. When we breach the family's fortress, we find children, dozens of them, ranging in age from infants to adolescents, all mutating, their bodies rejecting their own humanity as the warp reweaves them into something new. We grant them the Emperor's peace. All of them. The children scream for parents who are already dead. Some call us monsters. Some beg for mercy we cannot give. I do not sleep well after Greystone. On an industrial world called Ferrus Prime, we encounter an entire regiment of the Astra Militarum that has been turned traitor by a single demonic whisper. One soldier, a corporal whose name I will never know, heard something in the dark between the stars while his ship was in transit through the warp. He heard it, and he believed it, and he shared it with his comrades. The corruption spread like a virus through a population that had no defense against it. By the time we arrive, 3,000 soldiers have sworn themselves to chaos. We kill them in a battle that lasts 7 hours. They die fighting for gods they do not understand, believing they are serving a greater truth. After each mission, the pattern is the same. Victory, purification, silence. And then the Inquisition arrives. They come in black ships with holds full of null maidens and mind-wiped servitors and psychic equipment that smells of burned neurons and chemical compliance. They establish perimeters. They gather survivors. And then they begin the process of erasure. Memory wipes, not selective, not gentle. Total cognitive restructuring administered by psychers and Medicae working in concert, scrubbing away every trace of what was witnessed. The survivors, guardsmen and civilians and planetary officials, are processed like broken machinery, their minds taken apart and reassembled without the contaminated pieces. I watch it happen on a mining world called Obsidian Deep. The warp incursion here was brief but intense. A cult opened a portal in the deep mines, and demons poured through for 3 hours before we arrived and sealed the breach. The local Astra Militarum regiment fought bravely, holding the perimeter, buying time for evacuation. 70% casualties. The survivors fought with distinction. One sergeant in particular stands out in my memory. He is young, perhaps 25 Terran Standard years, with a face marked by shrapnel scars and eyes that have already seen too much. During the battle, he saves Brother Cardius's life. A possessed cultist, wrapped in warp fire and screaming blasphemies, charges at my battle brother from a blind angle. The sergeant throws himself at the cultist, tackling him away from Cardius, absorbing the full force of the possession fire. His uniform ignites. His skin blisters. But he holds on long enough for Cardius to recover and deliver the killing blow. We extract the sergeant immediately, our Medicae servitors stabilizing his burns, administering pain suppressors and flesh knitters. He will survive. He will carry scars, but he will survive. After the battle, I find him in the field Medicae station. He is conscious, sitting up despite the protests of the attending servitor. When he sees me approach, he tries to stand, tries to salute. "Stay seated," I tell him. My voice through the Vox grill sounds more mechanical than I intend. "You fought with honor." "Thank you, my lord," he says, and his voice cracks with exhaustion and pain, and something else. Pride, perhaps, or simply the relief of survival. "We held the line, just like you told us to." "You did more than that," I say. "You saved a brother's life." He smiles. It is a small thing, that smile, fragile and brief, but it is genuine. "I'm just glad I could help, that we could stand with you even for a moment, that we could matter." 3 days later, the Inquisition arrives. I watch from the observation deck of our strike cruiser as the inquisitorial transports descend to the planet's surface. I watch as the survivors, 847 guardsmen, 3,216 civilians, are gathered into processing centers. I watch as psychic hoods are fitted over their heads, as chemicals are administered, as their minds are systematically dismantled and rebuilt. The sergeant is among them. When the process is complete, he will not remember the battle. He will not remember the demons. He will not remember his fallen comrades or his own courage, or the moment he threw himself into fire to save a warrior he believed was worth saving. He will wake up believing there was a mining accident, a structural collapse, gas leak perhaps, something mundane, something that does not require him to know that demons are real and that the universe is so much darker than anyone should have to comprehend. I find Justicar Thane in the chapel, kneeling before the shrine to the Emperor. I wait until he finishes his prayers before I speak. Why? I ask. The sergeant, the guardsmen, they fought bravely. They deserve to remember. Thane rises slowly. He does not look at me immediately. When he does, his eyes are tired in a way that has nothing to do with physical exhaustion. Deserve, he repeats, as if testing the word. That is not the question we ask. Then what is the question? The question is, what would remembering give them? I do not understand. Pride, purpose, the knowledge that they stood against the darkness and survived. And what else? Thane asks. His voice is patient, but there is something heavy beneath it. What else would they know? I hesitate. They would know the truth, Thane continues, that demons are real, that the warp can tear through reality at any moment, that their prayers might not be answered and their faith might not be enough, that evil exists on a scale they cannot comprehend and cannot fight. They would know, and they would have no power to act on that knowledge. He pauses, and when he speaks again, his voice is quieter. Hope is a luxury. They cannot hope to stand against what we face, and knowing that such evil exists without the power to fight it would break them utterly. So we take the memory. We give them peace. We let them believe the universe is smaller and safer than it is. Is that mercy? I ask. No, Thane says. It is necessity. Mercy would be never letting them see demons in the first place, but we do not arrive in time for mercy. We arrive in time for survival, and survival requires sacrifice. He places a hand on my shoulder pauldron. We sacrifice our names, our memories, our humanity. They sacrifice only their memory of one terrible day. That is the price of purity. That is the cost of keeping humanity ignorant enough to maintain hope. He leaves me alone in the chapel. I kneel where he knelt, and I try to pray, but the words feel hollow. Somewhere below, a young sergeant is waking up, believing he survived a mining accident, never knowing he was a hero. And I am beginning to understand what it means to be a Grey Knight. We do not just fight monsters, we become them, so others do not have to know monsters exist. The understanding deepens into horror on a world called Tertium Majoris. It is a civilized world, prosperous by imperial standards, with a population of 4 billion spread across 3 continents. The capital city, Throne's Grace, is a monument to faith and industry. Cathedral spires rising above manufacturum districts. Hab blocks arranged in patterns that echo the imperial aquila when viewed from orbit. A world that has paid its tithes for 6,000 years without complaint. A world that believes itself safe beneath the Emperor's gaze. It is not safe. The intelligence reports come through as we approach in-system. A chaos cult has been operating in Throne's Grace for decades, hidden among the noble houses, spreading corruption through bloodlines and marriage alliances. They have opened a warp rift in the heart of the capital. Demonic manifestation is already occurring. Civilian casualties estimated in the hundreds of thousands and rising. We make planetfall directly into the teeth of the incursion. The drop pod lands in what was once a public square. Through the armored viewport, I watch the city tearing itself apart. Buildings twist like living things, their architecture rejecting the laws of geometry and physics. The streets run with blood that flows upward, defying gravity, collecting in pools that hang suspended in the air and reflect images of places that should not exist. Civilians flee in all directions, some still human, some transforming as we watch, their bodies rejecting their own forms as demons claw their way into reality through the vessels of living flesh. A woman screams. Her skin splits open like overripe fruit, and something made of claws and hunger emerges from inside her, wearing her face like a mask. A child stands frozen in the middle of the street, staring at the sky, where reality has cracked open and the warp bleeds through in colors that hurt to perceive. An old man prays to the Emperor with blood streaming from his eyes, his faith so intense it manifests as psychic fire that burns demon and human alike without distinction. This is what demonic incursion looks like when it happens in a population center. This is what we exist to stop. Strike Force Paladin deploys in combat formation. We are 12 Grey Knights, 2 full squads under Brother Captain Alaric's command. We move through the streets like a silver tide, and where we pass, demons die. Storm bolters bark out litanies of destruction. Force weapons cut through immaterial flesh with edges made of faith and mathematics. Psychic lightning arcs from our outstretched hands, not burning but unmaking, erasing demonic essence from reality itself. We fight for 6 hours. 6 hours of constant combat through streets where reality is negotiable. Where up might become down without warning. Where time flows differently in each city block. I watch Brother Severin age 40 years in the span of 3 seconds, when he passes through a temporal anomaly, his armor suddenly bearing centuries of wear, his face lined with wrinkles that were not there before. He does not falter. He simply continues forward, older now, slower now, but no less determined. We reach the epicenter as the sun sets, or what we believe is the sun, though the sky has turned the color of infected wounds, and the light comes from all directions simultaneously. The warp rift dominates the city center. It is vast, perhaps 200 meters across, a tear in the fabric of reality that pulses like a beating heart. Through it, I can see the warp itself, the roiling madness of the immaterium, the realm where thought and matter are one, where demons swim through seas of emotion and impossibility like predators in an infinite ocean. And standing before the rift, wreathed in fire and brass and the screams of 10,000 murdered souls, is a bloodthirster of Khorne. It is enormous, 4 times the height of a space marine. Its skin is the color of dried blood, stretched over muscles that should not be able to support their own mass. Wings of torn flesh and corroded brass spread from its back, each one large enough to cast a city block in shadow. In one hand it holds a blade that burns with unholy fire. In the other, a whip made of vertebrae and barbed wire that moves with its own terrible life. Around it, 100 lesser demons writhe and howl, bloodletters and flesh hounds and things that have no names in any human language. Formation Sigma, Brother Captain Alaric commands, and we obey without thought. We arrange ourselves in a perfect geometric pattern, a 12-pointed star with the bloodthirster at its center. Each Grey Knight becomes a point in a psychic mandala, our combined wills forming a cage of faith and mathematics that begins to contract around the daemon. The bloodthirster roars. The sound is not merely loud, it is a physical force that shatters windows 3 kilometers away, that causes unaugmented humans to collapse bleeding from the ears. Lesser demons charge at our formation, but they die before they reach us, unmade by the psychic pressure of our combined presence. "On my mark," Alaric says, and we begin to speak. We speak the bloodthirster's true name, not the name it calls itself, not the title it has earned through 10,000 years of slaughter. Its actual name, the word that defines its existence in the warp, the syllables that bind it to a specific configuration of rage and hunger, and the terrible joy of violence. The name takes 47 seconds to speak in its entirety. Each syllable must be pronounced with absolute precision, each phoneme delivered in perfect synchronization with the 11 other voices speaking it simultaneously. The language predates humanity. The sounds were never meant to be made by human throats. I feel something tear in my larynx as I speak, taste blood in my mouth, but I do not stop. The psychic pressure builds with each word. Reality itself seems to lean in, listening, judging whether we have the right to command such power. Somewhere in the distance, I am told later, 3 inquisitorial acolytes who were observing from a fortified position 4 kilometers away die from cerebral hemorrhaging. The psychic resonance of the true name is too much for unshielded minds to withstand. They collapse simultaneously, blood streaming from their noses and eyes and ears, their brains liquefying inside their skulls. The bloodthirster screams defiance. It knows what we are doing. It throws itself against the psychic cage we have woven around it. But mathematics is stronger than rage. Faith is more absolute than fury. We speak the final syllable of its true name, and the demon is bound. For one perfect moment, it is frozen. A creature of infinite violence held motionless by 12 voices, speaking a truth it cannot deny. Then we banish it. The bloodthirster is torn apart by its own essence, unraveling from the inside out as the warp reclaims what should never have existed in real space. Its scream echoes across dimensions as it is dragged back through the rift. The lesser diamonds follow, sucked into the void like water down a drain. The rift itself begins to collapse, reality rushing back to fill the wound, desperate to heal. Victory is absolute. We stand in the ruins of Throne's Grace, 12 grey knights in silver armor, and the warp incursion is ended. Then comes the cost. Brother Captain Alaric receives the order via encrypted vox. I see his posture change, a subtle stiffening that would be invisible to anyone who has not fought beside him for years. He does not argue, he does not question. He simply acknowledges and turns to face us. "Extraction in 30 minutes, he says. "Stand ready for orbital bombardment." I do not understand at first. The incursion is contained. The demons are banished. The rift is sealed. Surely now comes reconstruction. Purification. The long process of reclaiming what was corrupted and making it holy again. But Justicar Thane's face tells me otherwise. We are extracted to the strike cruiser. As the Thunderhawk lifts off, I look down at Throne's Grace through the armored viewport. The city is damaged but intact. I can see survivors emerging from shelters, can see PDF forces beginning to establish order, can see medical teams moving through the rubble to tend to the wounded. 2 million people, most of them innocent, all of them witnesses. The orbital bombardment begins 10 minutes after we dock with the cruiser. I watch from the observation deck as lance strikes rain down from the fleet. Pillars of light that turn stone to vapor, that erase buildings from existence, that reach down like the fingers of an angry god and reshape the landscape through pure destructive force. The city becomes light, then ash, then nothing. 2 million souls, erased in an afternoon. They saw, Justicar Thane says quietly beside me. He does not look away from the viewport. They saw demons walk their streets. They saw reality break. They saw their loved ones possessed and transformed. They cannot be allowed to remember. And memory wipes on that scale. the failure rate would be too high. Some would remember, some would speak. The corruption would spread through testimony and belief. So we kill them, I say. My voice sounds distant to my own ears. So we erase the evidence, Thane corrects. Chemical weapon leak, atmospheric failure, reactor meltdown. The official record will show tragedy, not truth. I understand now. We do not just fight demons. We erase the proof that demons exist. We are not heroes. We are janitors, cleaning up humanity's worst nightmares and disposing of anyone who witnessed the cleaning. The city finishes burning, and I watch until there is nothing left to see but scorched earth and rising smoke. The smoke fades from my memory faster than I expect, and this troubles me in ways I cannot articulate. Time becomes difficult to measure when every day is identical to the last. Deployment, combat, victory, return, meditation, prayer, maintenance of armor and weapon and soul, then deployment again. The cycle repeats without variation, without pause, without anything to mark one mission as distinct from another, except the names of the demons I banish and the worlds I leave behind. Centuries pass. I know this because my armor tells me so. The ceramite is inscribed now with 947 names, each one a daemon I have personally banished, each syllable etched into the silver in microscript so small that only augmented eyes can read it. The names cover my pauldrons, my breastplate, my gauntlets. They spiral down my arms in geometric patterns that are both decoration and ward, beauty and function made one. I am Justicar now. I lead my own squad, 5 Grey Knights who follow my commands with the same absolute precision I once showed Justicar Thane. Brother Captain Alaric fell in combat 70 years ago, dragged into the warp by a greater daemon of Tzeentch during a battle I do not clearly remember. Thane was elevated to Brother Captain in his place. I took Thane's position. This is how the chapter continues. This is how we persist across millennia, not through individuals, but through the unbroken chain of duty passed from one warrior to the next. My faith is absolute. This is not pride. This is observable fact. When I speak the litanies of banishment, reality obeys. When I invoke the Emperor's name in combat, demons recoil as if struck. When I extend my will into the warp and command it to retreat, it retreats. The psycho-conditioning that began on Titan has been reinforced by 3 centuries of prayer and combat and exposure to the divine architecture of faith made manifest. I do not doubt. I cannot doubt. Doubt would be a crack, and cracks invite corruption. But something has changed. I notice it first during meditation, in the silent hours between deployments, when we return to our cells and seek the Emperor's guidance through contemplation and prayer. I kneel before the shrine in my quarters. A simple thing, just an aquila carved from blessed silver and a candle that never fully burns down. And I reach for the mental disciplines that keep my soul pure. The catechisms of purity, the 7 seals of the mind, the contemplation of absolute faith. These are the techniques all Grey Knights learn, the psychic exercises that fortify the soul against temptation and keep the darkness at bay. They are difficult by design, meant to require constant effort, constant vigilance, constant reinforcement. But they are not difficult anymore. They are easy. Too easy. Not because I have mastered them. Mastery implies struggle overcome through discipline. This is different. This is the absence of struggle. When I reach for the parts of my mind that must be guarded, when I examine my soul for weaknesses or cracks, or the subtle stains that might indicate corruption, I find nothing. Not nothing as in purity, nothing as in absence. The emotions that once required suppression are simply not there. I perform a diagnostic, moving through my memory systematically, testing my responses. When was the last time I felt anger? I search backward through decades and find the answer. 43 years ago, during a battle against a demon of Khorne who desecrated the body of a fallen brother. I remember the anger then, a white-hot flash of rage that I had to suppress through prayer and breathing exercises, but I have not felt anger since. When was the last time I felt sorrow? Longer. 68 years, perhaps 70. A world called Penance, where we arrived too late and found an entire city transformed into demonic flesh, still screaming. I remember grief then, or something like it, a heavy weight in my chest that took 3 days of meditation to purge. I have not felt sorrow since. When was the last time I felt anything but duty? I cannot remember. I cannot remember when it stopped. The realization should disturb me, should trigger some response, concern, fear, even curiosity. But I feel nothing, just the acknowledgement of a fact, clinical and detached, like reading a damage report on my armor's systems. I am becoming what I was designed to be, a living weapon, perfect and pure and utterly inhuman. The thought arrives unbidden during a combat deployment on a world whose name I will not remember. Am I still a man? Or have I become something else wearing man-shaped armor? We are fighting our way through a space hulk infested with demons of Nurgle. The corridors are slick with decay, the walls breathing with infections that have consciousness and malice. My squad moves in perfect formation. We kill efficiently, methodically, without hesitation or waste. A plague bearer lunges at Brother Castiel. I intercept it with my force halberd, speaking its true name as I strike. It dissolves into ichor and disappointment. The motion is automatic. I do not think about it. I do not feel triumph or satisfaction or relief that my brother is safe. I simply act, and the action is perfect because there is nothing in me to interfere with its execution. No fear to slow my reflexes, no anger to make me reckless, no attachment to make me hesitate. I am optimal. I am efficient. I am no longer entirely human. Later, back aboard the strike cruiser, I remove my helmet for the first time in 6 weeks. The recycled air of the ship tastes sterile after the putrid atmosphere of the space hulk. I catch my reflection in the polished surface of a bulkhead and stop, studying the face that looks back at me. It is my face. I recognize it. But there is something wrong with the eyes. They are gray. Most Grey Knight's eyes turn gray eventually, a side effect of the gene seed and psychic conditioning. But it is not the color that disturbs me. It is the expression, or rather the lack of expression. My face is calm, neutral, empty in a way that goes beyond stoicism into something that looks like absence. I try to smile. The muscles obey, pulling my lips into the correct configuration. But it is mechanical, a learned behavior executed without the emotion that should animate it, like watching a servitor mimic human expression through programmed responses. When did I stop being able to smile naturally? When did I stop wanting to? I force myself to continue the self-examination, to test the boundaries of what I have become. I think of Brother Castiel, whom I saved today. I have fought beside him for 94 years. We have bled together, prayed together, stood back to back against horrors that would break mortal minds. By any definition, he is my brother. Do I love him? The question feels alien. Love is an emotion, and emotions are weaknesses that must be purged. But surely there must be something. Camaraderie, loyalty, the bond of shared purpose, if nothing else. I search for it and find only duty. The recognition that his survival serves the chapter's goals, that his death would reduce our combat effectiveness, that I would mourn his loss the way one mourns a broken weapon, regretful of the waste, but not what? Not human. The word arrives like a verdict. I would not mourn him the way a human mourns the loss of someone they love, because I do not love, because that capacity has been excised along with doubt and fear and all the other soft things that make a soul vulnerable to corruption. I have become incorruptible by becoming empty. The armor never comes off. Not truly. Even now, standing in my quarters with my helmet removed and my pauldrons unsealed, I am still wearing it. The psycho-conditioning, the gene seed, the centuries of ritual and prayer and combat that have shaped my mind into something that thinks in litanies and true names and geometric patterns of banishment. I kneel before the shrine in my quarters and try to pray, but the words feel hollow. Not because I doubt their truth. I know the Emperor is real, know his power, know that my faith functions because it is based on observable fact. But the prayer lacks something. Heat, urgency, the desperate quality of a mortal soul reaching for divinity because it needs hope and meaning and purpose beyond itself. I pray because it is my function, not because I need to, not because I want to, simply because this is what I am programmed to do. I am a weapon that bleeds, a prayer that walks, a banishment given flesh. But am I still a man? The question echoes in the silence of my quarters, and I have no answer. Only the certainty that whatever I once was, I am not that anymore. And the terrible suspicion that this transformation, this slow erosion of humanity in exchange for purity, is not a flaw in the Grey Knight's design. It is the entire purpose. The answer comes in the worst possible moment, aboard a vessel that should not exist. We are tasked with boarding a Chaos Space Marine cruiser that has breached the Cadian Gate's outer defenses. The ship is corrupted by Slanesh, its hull twisted into obscene shapes, its corridors pulsing with a rhythm that suggests breathing, or something worse. Intelligence reports indicate the vessel is commanded by a warband of Emperor's children, traitors who turned from the Emperor's light 10,000 years ago during the heresy. We teleport directly into the ship's heart, 5 Grey Knights materializing in a corridor that screams with colors that have no names. The air is thick with perfume and decay, with music that comes from no visible source and makes the inner ear ache with its beauty and wrongness. Combat formation, I command, and my squad obeys instantly. We advance through corridors where the walls weep fluids that might be tears or might be something more intimate. We encounter cultists, humans who have given themselves to excess, their bodies modified beyond recognition, their minds lost to sensation and hunger. We kill them without ceremony. They die grateful, mistaking our violence for the pleasure pain their dark god promises. The Chaos Space Marines are more dangerous. They are warriors who were once our equals, genetically enhanced, battle-trained, veterans of 10,000 years of warfare. But corruption has made them something more and something less than human. They fight with grace that borders on dance, their movements fluid and precise and wrong in ways that make the eye want to look away. Their armor is baroque, decorated with symbols that hurt to perceive, painted in colors that should not be visible to human sight. We kill 3 of them in the first engagement. Brother Castiel takes a bolter round through his pauldron, but does not fall. Brother Theron's force sword cuts through ceramite and corrupted flesh alike. The Emperor's children die screaming prayers to a god I will not name, and their deaths sound like ecstasy. We push deeper into the ship, following the psychic signature of something vast and ancient and aware at the vessel's core. The corruption intensifies with each corridor. Reality becomes negotiable. Up and down lose meaning. Time flows differently in each chamber. I watch Brother Severin age and then youth backwards within the span of 3 heartbeats, his armor flickering between pristine silver and ancient decay. We reach a chamber that should not be. It is circular, vast, its walls covered in mirrors that do not reflect light correctly. The reflections show places that are not here, times that are not now, versions of reality that branch away from this one like roads diverging in darkness. At the chamber's center stands a demon. It is not large, human-sized, perhaps smaller. Its form is difficult to focus on. Sometimes masculine, sometimes feminine, sometimes neither or both. Its skin is mirror bright, reflecting everything around it with perfect clarity. It has no face, or perhaps it has all faces, shifting through expressions too quickly to track. "Welcome," it says, and its voice is crystalline and beautiful and utterly inhuman. "I have been waiting for you, the incorruptible ones, the pure, the empty." I raise my force halberd. "By the authority of the Emperor and the sanction of the Ordo Malleus, I name you Neverborn and command you to—" "Look!" the demon interrupts, gesturing at the mirrors surrounding us. My brothers look before I can stop them. Brother Castiel sees himself as a husband. The mirror shows him older, softer, laugh lines around his eyes instead of psychic scars. He stands in a garden with a woman whose hand he holds, watching children play. The scene is so mundane, so gentle, that it takes a moment to recognize the horror. This is what he might have been if the black ships had never come. Brother Castiel falls to his knees. His storm bolter drops from nerveless fingers. He is weeping. I have never heard a grey knight weep before. The sound is raw, animal, a grief so profound it bypasses all conditioning and strikes directly at whatever remains of his soul. Brother Theron sees himself as an artist. The mirror shows him in a workshop, hands unaugmented and delicate, shaping clay into forms of beauty. There is paint under his fingernails. Music playing from somewhere. A cat sleeping on a sunlit windowsill. Peace, purpose, creation instead of destruction. Brother Severin sees himself as a scholar. The mirror shows him in robes instead of armor, teaching students in a classroom, sharing knowledge instead of death. His eyes are kind. His smile is genuine. He looks happy in a way that has nothing to do with duty or faith, or the grim satisfaction of demons banished. "No," I command. "Look away. These are lies, temptations, versions of yourselves that never existed and never could." But Brother Theron is not listening. He has raised his storm bolter, placed the barrel against his own temple. His finger is on the trigger. His eyes are still locked on the mirror, on the life he might have lived, on the person he might have been before they made him into a weapon. I move without thinking. My force halberd swings in a perfect arc, powered by centuries of training and psychic might amplified through blessed silver. The blade strikes the mirror that holds Brother Theron captive. The glass shatters. Reality reasserts itself. Theron collapses, the storm bolter clattering from his hand. But he is alive. I turn to destroy the other mirrors, but not before I see my own reflection. I expect to see what my brothers saw, a life unlived, a person unmade, the ghost of who I might have been before Titan, a mother, a father, a childhood, love, warmth, humanity. But that is not what the mirror shows me. It shows me exactly as I am, a figure in silver armor, inscribed with wards and prayers and the names of 947 demons. A warrior whose posture is perfect, whose movements are efficient, whose purpose is absolute. Psychic lightning crackles around my form, not wild but controlled, channeled, directed with mathematical precision. My eyes are gray and empty. My face is expressionless, beautiful in the way a weapon is beautiful, perfectly designed for its function, but devoid of warmth or recognition, or any trace of the humanity I am sworn to protect. I look like the demons I fight. Not in form. I am not corrupted, not twisted, not marked by the ruinous powers, but in essence. in the absolute quality of my existence. Demons are creatures of pure purpose, embodiments of singular emotions or concepts given shape and will. They cannot be anything other than what they are. They cannot choose, cannot change, cannot doubt, and neither can I. The horror of recognition strikes me with the force of a physical blow. I have become something beyond human understanding, something that operates according to rules and rituals and absolute certainties, something that looks at humanity from the outside, the way a shepherd looks at sheep, responsible for their protection, but not one of them. Never one of them. Never again. I shatter my own mirror with a cry that sounds like rage but feels like nothing. The demon laughs. Its laughter is not mocking. It is genuine, delighted, the sound of something that has witnessed a truth it finds beautiful in its cruelty. "You call us monsters," it says as I advance on it, my force halberd raised, the words of its true name already forming on my lips. But you cannot even remember what it means to be anything else. I speak its true name. The demon screams as I unmake it, pulling it apart syllable by syllable, erasing its existence from reality with mathematics and faith combined. It dies still laughing, and the laughter echoes in the chamber long after its form has dissolved into nothing. My brothers are broken. Brother Castiel kneels on the deck plating, still weeping. Brother Theron lies unconscious where he fell. Brother Severin stares at nothing, his eyes vacant, his mind retreated somewhere I cannot follow. We extract from the Chaos vessel with our mission incomplete. The ship is still operational when we teleport back to our strike cruiser. Lord Inquisitor Kravin, who authorized our deployment, demands an explanation for our failure. I give him none. How do I explain that we encountered a demon that showed us truth instead of lies? That we were defeated not by corruption, but by recognition? That my brothers broke not because they were tempted to fall, but because they were shown what falling had already stolen from them? How do I explain that I saw myself clearly for the first time in 3 centuries, and what I saw was a monster wearing the shape of a man? I do not try. I simply request permission to return my brothers to Titan for sanctification and ritual cleansing, and I kneel alone in my quarters and stare at my gauntleted hands and wonder if the demon was right. Wonder if I have become so pure, so perfect, so absolutely dedicated to my purpose that I have stopped being human entirely. Wonder if that was always the point. The wondering becomes unbearable during the purification rites, and something inside me breaks. We return to Titan 3 days after the Mirror Demon incident. Brother Castiel is catatonic. His mind retreated so deeply into itself that even the librarians cannot reach him. Brother Theron speaks only in fragments, reciting names of people he should not remember, family perhaps, or friends from a life that was supposed to be erased. Brother Severin is functional but changed, moving through the rituals mechanically, his eyes empty in a way that goes beyond our usual emptiness into something that looks like death. The apothecarian determines they need sanctification. Deep psycho-reconditioning, chemical rebalancing, ritual cleansing to purge whatever taint the mirror demon left in their minds. I am deemed stable, unaffected. My mind shows no signs of corruption or compromise. This is a lie, but I do not correct it. The purification rites take place in the halls of cleansing, deep beneath Titan's surface where the psychic shielding is strongest, and the barriers between reality and the warp are reinforced by 10,000 years of prayer and sacrifice. I am not required to attend. I am the Justiciar. My duty is to my remaining brothers and to preparation for the next deployment. But I go anyway. I watch as Castiel is strapped to a surgical altar, his armor removed, his body bare except for the gene seed scars and augmentation ports that mark him as transhuman. The librarians and tech priests work in concert, placing psychic hoods over his head, administering chemicals through intravenous lines, chanting prayers in the ancient language that was old when humanity was young. They are rewriting his mind, burning away the memory of what he saw in the mirror, cauterizing the wound the demon opened when it showed him a life unlived. When the procedure is complete, Castiel will not remember the mirror. He will not remember weeping. He will not remember that there was ever a version of himself that might have been happy. He will be functional again, whole, ready to fight. And I realize, watching this, that I am terrified. Not of demons, not of corruption, not of death or failure, or any of the things a Grey Knight is trained to master through faith and discipline. I am terrified of myself, of what I have become, of what I am still becoming, of the slow erosion that has turned me from a person into a process, from a human being into a function that wears human shape. The fear is so overwhelming, so absolute, that for a moment I cannot breathe, cannot think, cannot do anything but feel the weight of 3 centuries pressing down on me like the mass of a dying star. I leave the halls of cleansing. I walk through corridors I have walked 1,000 times before, but they feel different now. Alien, as if I am seeing them for the first time, or perhaps seeing them as they truly are. A prison dressed up as a monastery, a place designed to strip away everything that makes a soul worth saving in the name of creating something pure enough to stand against the warp. I find myself in the Chamber of Remembrance. It is a sacred space, this chamber, ancient beyond measure, carved from Titan's bedrock during the chapter's founding 10,000 years ago. The walls are inscribed with the names of every Grey Knight who has ever fallen in service to the Emperor. Thousands upon thousands of names in the old language, each one a warrior who gave everything and was forgotten by everyone except his brothers. At the chamber's heart stands a shrine to the Emperor, not the corpse god on the golden throne, withered and dying, not the master of mankind as he appears in propaganda, stern and judgmental and distant. This shrine shows him as he was during the Unification Wars. A warrior, yes, but also something more, something almost human. His face is rendered in blessed silver, and whoever carved it captured something in the expression that I have never seen in any other imperial iconography. Sorrow. I am alone in the chamber. It is late in Titan's artificial cycle, the time when most brothers are in meditation or rest. I kneel before the shrine, and for the first time in 3 centuries, I pray not because it is my duty, but because I need to. I do not know what I am anymore. I whisper to the silver face of the Emperor. I do not know if I am still human. I do not know if I was ever meant to be. The words feel dangerous, heretical even. To question one's nature is to invite doubt, and doubt is a crack through which corruption enters. But I am beyond caring. I need an answer. I need to understand why I was made this way, why we are all made this way, hollowed out and filled with purpose and sent to fight horrors while slowly becoming horrors ourselves. Show me, I plead. Show me that this means something, that the sacrifice is worth it, that what we lose is less than what we save. For a long moment there is only silence. Then something reaches back. Not a voice, not a presence. Something older and stranger. A fragment of psychic resonance carried through the gene seed in my blood. An echo of the Emperor himself from an age when he still walked among humanity as something approximating human. A vision unfolds in my mind. I see the Emperor during the Unification Wars, standing on a battlefield on Terra, where mountains of corpses stretch to the horizon. The dead are all warriors, Thunder Warriors, the Proto-Astartes, the first attempt at transhuman soldiers. They were too violent, too unstable, too dangerous to let live once the wars were won. So he destroyed them, his own creations, his own sons in a way. And he is weeping, Not openly, not dramatically, just silent tears running down a face that has seen too much, endured too much, sacrificed too much in pursuit of a vision of human survival that requires inhuman acts. I made you to do what must be done. His voice whispers across 10,000 years, distant and sorrowful and unutterably tired. I made weapons because the universe demands weapons. I made monsters because worse monsters were coming. But never forget the cost. Never forget what you sacrifice is real. The vision shifts. I see the founding of the Grey Knights. 8 space marines kneeling before the Emperor in the final days before he ascends to the Golden Throne. I see him placing his hands on their heads, one by one, and I feel what he feels. Grief. Terrible, crushing grief for what he is about to do to them and all who will come after. He is creating warriors who will never fall to chaos because he is removing everything in them that chaos might corrupt. He is creating martyrs who will live forever. Saints who will never know sin because they will never know anything. Not love, not joy, not attachment, not even the simple human warmth of companionship. He is creating us, and he knows exactly what it will cost. You are incorruptible, the Vision Emperor says, and his voice breaks on the word. And that incorruptibility requires the death of everything that makes a soul worth saving. You will be perfect. You will be pure. You will be everything I need you to be. And you will hate me for it if you remember how to hate. The vision fades. I am kneeling in the chamber of remembrance, tears running down my face. And I do not know when I started crying, or if I even remember how. I understand now. The horror of the Grey Knights is not that we might be corrupted. It is that we cannot be corrupted, and that our incorruptibility was purchased with our humanity. We are weapons so pure that we have become something other than human. We are prayers so absolute that we have forgotten what it means to doubt or question or feel anything beyond the cold certainty of our purpose. We are martyrs who cannot die, because what makes us martyrs is not our death, but our continued existence as something less than we were, something more than we should be. We are saints who cannot sin, because sin requires desire, and we have been emptied of desire so thoroughly that only duty remains. We are angels who have forgotten how to love, because love is attachment, and attachment is weakness, and weakness is the door through which demons enter. The Emperor made us this way deliberately, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, because the galaxy is so dark, so filled with horrors, that only something inhuman could stand against it without breaking. He sacrificed our humanity to save humanity, and he knew, creating us, that this was monstrous, that what he was doing to us was no different in its way than what chaos does to its worshippers, taking something human and remaking it into something that serves a purpose beyond itself, that exists only to fulfill a function, that has no value except in its utility. The only difference is that our purpose is the survival of humanity rather than its destruction. The only difference is that our suffering is hidden behind silver armor and psychic wards, and the official secrecy that ensures no one will ever know what we gave up to protect them. I kneel in the chamber of remembrance, and I accept it. Not because I want to, not because I believe it is right, but because I understand that this is what I am, what I was always meant to become, and fighting against it would be fighting against my own existence. I am a Grey Knight. I am a weapon that bleeds, a prayer that walks, an angel who has forgotten how to be human. And the last battle, the only battle that truly matters, is the one within myself, accepting what I have become while trying to remember, however faintly, what I once was, even if that memory is only the echo of an absence, even if all that remains is the shape of the wound where my humanity used to be. The acceptance follows me back to war, and I find myself standing where I began, in the silence after a scream, in the moment after a demon has been banished and reality is still settling back into the shapes it remembers, in a place that was once something, a cathedral, a city square, a ship's corridor, but is now just scorched earth and fading echoes of the warp's touch. My brothers are dead around me. Not the brothers from the mirror demon. They were sanctified, reconditioned, returned to service. These are different brothers. New brothers, or perhaps old brothers whose names I have already forgotten. It does not matter. There are always brothers. There is always death. There is always the silence that comes after. I stand in my silver armor, inscribed now with 963 names. 16 more demons banished since Titan. 16 more syllables carved into ceramite that has become more prayer than protection, more symbol than shield. The air tastes of ash and something sweeter. Always something sweeter. The corruption never fully leaves, even after we drive it back. It stains the places it touches, leaves residue that will take decades or centuries to fade. Sometimes we burn those places. Sometimes we bury them. Sometimes we simply mark them as forbidden and let time do the work of forgetting. I am tired. Not physically. My augmented body does not tire easily, can function for weeks without rest if necessary. But there is a weariness in me that has nothing to do with flesh or muscle or the nervous system that connects them. It is the weariness of having done the same thing too many times, of having stood in too many places like this one, surrounded by too many dead brothers, breathing air that tastes of too many battles won at costs no one will remember. I speak, perhaps to myself, perhaps to the listener who does not exist, perhaps to the Emperor across the gulf of stars, hoping the words might reach him through the psychic resonance carried in my gene seed. I know what I am, I say, and my voice through the Vox grill sounds hollow, mechanical, a ghost speaking through a machine. I am a monster made necessary by worse monsters. I am the thing humanity needs, but should never have to see. I am the proof that survival sometimes requires becoming the thing you fight against. Not in allegiance, but in nature, in absoluteness, in the willingness to sacrifice everything soft and human and worth protecting in order to protect it. The silence does not answer. It never does. Every world we save must forget it was saved. I continue. Every daemon we banish is paid for with a piece of humanity surrendered forever. Ours, theirs, everyone's. The Imperium tells its citizens that the Emperor protects, and he does. But they do not know the shape of that protection. They do not know that his angels are hollow, that his prayers are spoken by things that have forgotten how to mean them, that his salvation comes at the hands of warriors who look at humanity from the outside and feel nothing but duty. I look down at my gauntleted hands. They are steady. They are always steady. That is what I have become. Absolute steadiness, unshakable purpose, faith so pure it has burned away everything else. I will never retire, I say. Never lay down this burden, never return to whatever life I might have lived before they made me into this. There is no before. There is only the eternal present of war and the certain future of more war. When I die, and I will die, all Grey Knights die eventually, torn apart by demons or consumed by the warp, or simply worn down by centuries of combat. My name will be inscribed in a chamber beneath Titan, where no one but my brothers will ever see it. No statues, no monuments, no civilians speaking my name with gratitude or awe. Just a line of text in the old language, carved into stone, forgotten by everyone except the dead who keep records in the dark. The thought should bring sorrow, should trigger some response. But I feel nothing except the acknowledgement of fact, the acceptance of what I have always known. And yet I continue, I whisper, not because I find meaning in it, not because I believe my sacrifice will be remembered or honored or worth anything beyond the purely functional calculation of demons banished and worlds saved. I continue because without grey nights, humanity would fall into the endless dark, screaming all the way down. Because someone must stand in places like this one and speak words that reality obeys. Because someone must be empty enough to face the warp without flinching, pure enough to resist corruption, inhuman enough to do what humans cannot. I look up at the sky. It is the wrong color. It is always the wrong color after we fight, but it is clearing. Reality is reasserting itself. The wound is healing. In a day or a week or a month, this place will look normal again, and no one will remember that demons walked here, that the warp bled through, that humanity nearly fell. That is the point. That is what we do. We fight in secret so others can live in ignorance. We become monsters so they can remain human. I do not know who I was, I say, and the words echo the question I asked 3 centuries ago in the Chamber of Trials, the question that has followed me through every battle and every silence after. I no longer know who I am. The memories are gone. The emotions are gone. The capacity for anything beyond duty is gone. I am a shape that walks and fights and prays, but I do not know if there is still a person inside the shape, or if the shape is all that remains. I pause. Listen to the silence. Let it fill the spaces between my words. But I know what I must be, I conclude, and there is something final in the words, something that feels like acceptance or surrender, or perhaps just exhaustion. I must be the weapon that stands between humanity and the dark. I must be the prayer that demons fear. I must be the empty vessel that faith fills and duty directs and purpose consumes entirely. And in the galaxy of eternal war, that is enough. I speak the last words quietly, almost to myself. It has to be enough. Because if it is not enough, if the sacrifice of our humanity, our memories, our capacity for love and joy and all the soft things that make life worth living, if that sacrifice is not sufficient, then we have traded away everything for nothing. Then we are not martyrs or saints or angels, but simply victims of a cruelty too vast to comprehend, tools used and discarded in a war that has no end and no victory. But I cannot afford to believe that. None of us can. So I choose to believe that it is enough, that our existence, however horrible, serves a purpose, that the worlds we save and the people we protect and the darkness we hold back, that it all means something, even if no one knows, even if no one remembers, even if we ourselves forget why we started. I turn away from the silence. My brothers' bodies lie where they fell, and the extraction team will recover them soon, will harvest their gene seed and inscribe their names in the chamber of remembrance and forget them in all the ways that matter. I will forget them too, eventually. The psycho-conditioning will see to it. The rituals will scrub away the grief before it becomes attachment, before attachment becomes weakness, before weakness becomes corruption. I walk toward the extraction point where a thunderhawk waits to carry me back to the war. My armor catches the light. Wrong light, tainted light, but light nonetheless. And the silver gleams like a promise or a threat or simply a statement of fact. I am a grey knight. I am a weapon that bleeds. I am a prayer made flesh, and an angel who has forgotten how to love. I am forever bound to a duty that will never end, fighting battles no one will remember, protecting people who will never know my name. And I continue, not because I want to, not because I choose to, but because this is what I am, what I was made to be, what I will be until the moment I fall, and my name joins the thousands of others carved in stone beneath Titan. In the galaxy of eternal war, that is enough. It has to be.